we'll give it a go. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight for another community conversation. Really, this is super helpful for the village and for me as we move towards updating the community plan. Just because there's a few new faces, I'm Carolyn Lamont, and I'm the Director of Development for the village, and this is
Mr. Robertson.
Whose name I guess precedes him, and him and Raven are helping out with on a contact on these community conversations. And I'm learning so much more about the area and different places. And today's topic is interesting because it's parks, open space, and trails. So just to really talk about the village, I've done some stuff that I'll share with you on improving some of the trails, the parks that were destroyed and sidewalks and things like that. And then we'll just get you guys to comment and dream and in the comment section like you do. Jason, I'll hand it off to you.
All right. Yiddish, everybody. My name is Shook, which is Red Bear language here. And first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody to the unceded traditional territory of the Blackfoot Nation. So happy to be here today to have this conversation and this whole real series that the village has put together, and a tremendous opportunity to invite community in and to have that conversation, sort of take an inventory of where we're at as a community. So really situational awareness of where we are through this recovery process, and also to help assist in dreaming, creating a vision for the future of the village of Lytton as well. So very important work, and happy to see everybody coming out here today to share a meal and have a conversation. And so we can hop right into it. Yeah. Obviously tonight we're talking about the parks and trails, and
Take the next one.
yeah,
You got it. Yeah. There we go.
yeah. So really just want to give a sort of a background of what parks and trails and open spaces means. That it equals a healthy community, right? So providing parks and green spaces help beautify communities and make life more pleasant. These spaces are vital for human health and well-being. And so, spending time in nature definitely improves the human health, and it depends on a healthy ecosystem. The parks and protected areas contribute to a vibrant and healthy community, and in Lytton, we're truly blessed in having that picturesque landscape and scenery, and tons of opportunity for us to explore. Public green space, they include municipal parks, provincial and national parks, provincially managed land and ecological reserves, and public facilities. So for example, school grounds and playfields. Also, there are privately owned green spaces, and they also play a valuable role in communities and include working and productive landscapes, so agriculture and forest lands. Golf courses, open space holdings and subdivisions and whatnot, and also to include the railway and the utility corridors, so heavy right-of-ways and rail right-of-ways. So why do parks and open spaces matter to the village of Lytton? Parks and open spaces, they contribute to sustainability, identity, and give a spirit of place. Parks and open spaces, they have economic values. So they improve the property value of the nearby homes, and they help to boost tourism, and they attract residents, particularly workers, and that help to build a diverse local economy. Parks and open spaces, they also contribute to environmental health, so they act as carbon sinks, right? So more trees, more oxygen and whatnot, biodiversity and habitat. And they help to manage rainwater and infiltration into the storm water. So why do trails and sidewalks and trails really matter? Well, it's improved health. So residents who live in a walkable neighborhood, they tend to walk more, which can lead to better health outcomes and lower incidence of diseases. It enhances the community life. So walkable cities, they foster a sense of community and connectiveness, allowing residents to easily access shops, parks, and public spaces. In the environmental benefits, so promoting walking reduces reliance on cars, leading to lower carbon emissions and more sustainable urban environment. Economic advantages. Well, a walkable neighborhood can attract businesses and residents, which contribute to the local economy and help to create a vibrant community. So in other terms too, I mean, why do trails and sidewalks matter? Emergency preparedness. So trails, they're low cost, low impact, can be widespread and offer a powerful and underused opportunity. Trails can move people efficiently, absorb water rather than amplify it, and provide green corridors that help reduce heat and support ecosystems. View trails, they're not only, you know, as recreational amenities, but serve as a dual purpose infrastructure that form part of planning before disasters. So they help support emergency response and strengthen communities. And, you know, so when you create the fire breaks, fuel breaks and whatnot for fire, you know, that's work done on the land. I mean, if we plan carefully and plan our trail network, then you know, our local crews may, you know, have the opportunity to utilize that if our community is up against a fire again. You know, in our area, you know, we have huge regional and provincial parks in the area. So here we have sort of a historical map that shows some of the more recent fires that we've had in the area as well. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just the facing, I think, yeah, and then just start talking.
Yeah, so the regional and provincial parks, to open spaces and trails. And we're truly blessed to live where we do and being able to live next to the Stein Valley and Heritage Park. So wilderness parks with spectacular scenery and historical, cultural, and spiritual values. It protects the entire watershed. It's a sacred place and a significant source of sustenance for our people in the community, and it has for thousands of years now. Stein Valley, it's a user-maintained trail with 150 kilometers of hiking trails and routes. It encompasses cable crossings, a suspension bridge, and several wilderness campgrounds along the way. So historically, it's been used as a travel route through the mountains, as well as a spiritual and cultural site of practice. That's all facilitated and with the Stein Co-Management Board, which is partners with the Lytton First Nation and the provincial government. Also in the area, we have the Ski-Hist Provincial Park. So truly inspiring views of the Thompson Canyon, the trailhead providing access to approximately about 8 kilometers of hiking trails. And these trails, they provide excellent views of the canyon and mountains, as well as wildlife observation opportunities. And that wildlife observation, I mean, has a lot to do with the Ski-Hist Ecological Reserve, which is adjacent. So it was established for conservation of undisturbed ponderosa pine and grassland vegetation. It's also an elk overwintering spot. It's not really intended for outdoor recreation. However, the ER is open to the public for non-destructive activities like hiking and nature observation and photography. Also, we have the Squaha Lake Ecological Reserve, which is in the Botany Valley. It's a reserve that's representative of the interior Douglas fir and mountain spruce ecosystems, montane spruce ecosystems, together with many diverse meadow communities pertaining and outstanding wildflower displays and a lot of rare plants. So the Botany Valley, you know, is truly remarkable in itself, and I feel that, you know, I hold some knowledge of it, but there's a lot of knowledge in this room alone of the significance of the Botany Valley and how it's utilized, and all the different organizations that have made the time to come to the Botany Valley and learn. From what I understand, it's one of the most complete ecosystems in the area, most diverse, and hence the name, they named the valley Botany, after Botany. Also up there in the valley, we have the Botany Valley Park, which is formerly the Lions Club picnic grounds. And it's been a number of years since I had visited the site, probably about 15 years. I often drive by and whatnot, but went and had a look there the other day, and truly brought back a lot of memories, and Raven reminded me of how the school groups used to visit often and on field trips and whatnot to you know, play horseshoe tournaments and the trail riding through the park over the years. So I think that is something that needs a little bit of elbow grease, but a lot of the infrastructure and stuff is still there, so really neat to see. The Botany Recreation Site, so just right adjacent, before you get to Botany Lake, you have the rec site. It's the Forest Service rec site, and there's a small cabin there that was often used through the winter months when the community members would go and stay for a while and have a place to warm up, whether they're snowshoeing or cross country skiing or skidooing or what have you. So spend many evenings and weekends there, and that also includes a small campsite there.
The village stuff? Yeah. I'm just gonna have to turn to the village proctor part. And right now we have Chief Lytton, which is right around us, and all the improvements that happened last year. O'Dwyer Park, which is right here, and as I understand, it's sort of the must-stop park when people want to come and see the two rivers, the joining of the two rivers, and it's also probably a nice meditative spot too. Coming down, I did put the former school playing fields on because those no longer will be a school, but you always have to recognize that playing fields typically are areas where people will go and throw a ball around or whatnot. Pocket Park, we've been working on that, and I'll get a little more detail on what we're doing. As you know, the shade structure and the washroom and whatnot, and the landscaping, which will be coming soon. We've just ordered some plants, I believe. The future community hub, which although it's, you know, business, it will have buildings, but there also is, you probably learned last week, there's a plaza, which would be a plaza open space. And then behind the hub, there'll be some landscape areas or playgrounds, hopefully that also is part of that. Pioneer Cemetery, although cemeteries are not super active parks, they are meditative also, and historical, and just an area that will not be filled with buildings. I remember some time ago, Patsy told me about the Lookout Park, and when we did the walking tour with the OCP, that is owned by CN Rail, but somehow the village seems to use it as a park, so that might be something for me to look into a bit more. And then coming down, there's the future waterfront park or riverfront park, which I'll talk to you in a little bit, which is formerly known as the boat launch, which I think comes from rafting used. And then the future campground, which some of you might have been at the housing, where we talked about temporary housing for workers, and that we thought in the short term it could be for the RVs to allow for the workforce to be here, but then in the long term, a small little campground that would help with economic development as well. And then, unfortunately, the village has it's really hard to do square slides with the village map. So off the side, so you can see the future campground in the top right corner on the top left corner. So obviously the Kamshin school, Shima, Thank you. Schmem School, I'll get that. So that's large and nice playing fields and central location. The water reservoir, which I didn't know, which is just north of IR 17. It's just a reservoir. It's an open space, I suppose. Hobo Hollow, we talked about. And then the cemetery, and then Flag Park, which is really just the little interior where the flags are and the welcome to Lytton sign is. Next slide. So earlier, I guess late in the fall of last year, we brought a report more because we needed to get some funding to improve these parks. And so O'Dwyer, the desire was to reintroduce the irrigation and soil replacement, landscape improvements, replace the chain link fence, a picnic table, water bottle fill station, and a new sign. So these were all really restoring it to its splendor. And then it was a debate we had whether it was irrigated. And once the mayor shared that picture, we were like, yep, it had irrigation because look how green it is. And then the other one is Flag Park, again, repair irrigation, a new sign, and landscape improvements. So next slide. So here's the river access boat launch. And so restrict vehicle access to the river with gator signage so that people don't, as you all know, that it's a little tricky to get down there. Identify and sign designated parking lot east of the rail crossing. Resolve hazards from fire and flood. You can see right now there's some drainage issues on that road. There's definitely some burnt trees that could create a hazard. We also need to assess the feasibility of repairing that access road and remove the sand built up on the boat and rafting launches. I think it's about this high. You can still see the paving, which is incredible. We did just get some riparian work done to understand what the province through their riparian areas requirements we can do there. Pocket Park, I think probably is most evident. It was the Two Rivers that community services that did that beautiful shade structure. And then this year we'll be doing landscaping, water bottle fill station, permanent washroom, bulletin board. We do have the summer cooling vista. We just have to wait for some hot weather. And then a picnic table and an upper landing of the stairs and a new permanent park sign. So there are things happening. Next slide. So I put the sign out and I'm going to explain a little bit. So what I did is the red lines on this map, and it was sort of out there before, shows the rail lines. And when you look at parks and trails, it's always really important to look at desire lines, or where do people want to go? So obviously downtown, you can see the big black oval shape, that's downtown. Beside it, the hub, everybody will want to go to the hub, G. Spitlam and Parish Hall, Hobo Hollow, and just how do all those people get from one place to the other? The highway shoulder walkway, this one here is very heavily used. I know in the time I've been here, I've been watching the kids walk down it. There's a crew of them jogging on it today. Again, is that safe for kids? Is that safe for everybody? Those are type of things that you want to think about. I believe that we're working on, and next week they'll talk a bit more about infrastructure, but the village is very well served with sidewalks and always has, which is really good. So you have that great grid movement. Now, once you get up to Ponderosa or Loring, there is the one cemetery connector trail, but pretty much it's more of a traditional suburban subdivision where people walk on the shoulder. So those are all things. And then I did have luck to go out on that one hiking trail that goes up above Loring Way, which was beautiful and a really pretty trail. And I think all of you probably have other secret hiking trails that I've heard about, but I haven't been on yet. So next slide. So what I wanted to do was, there were things that we had in the workbook that most of you completed, and I just wanted to highlight how some of those response tie into when we start talking about parks and trails in the future. So one is sustainability, which I think Jason talked a lot about, the importance of trails and parks. The Two Rivers, obviously, a beautiful setting. being a visitor location, parks and trails are some reasons why people want to visit, particularly, a really walkable downtown or hiking trails. Scenic location complements that, and that the community is generally walkable. So then we kind of went through what were some of the issues that we need to address through this OCP, or the community would like to. So stimulating tourism, attracting new workforce, families, and children to live in the Lytton area. Economic objectives to encourage additional tourist and recreational commercial facilities. Tourism and festival growth. So again, people might attend a music festival, but when they're not seeing a band, they might want to run up and run into town and see the shops, or they might want to go do a hike. Next slide. Social objectives, obviously, this is where it's a little heavier. Cultural and recreational facilities and public spaces was really important. Preserve and enhance aspects of life in Lytton that contributes to its character and atmosphere, walkable community, small town, all those things. The spectacular area, the climate, you want to be outside. Promote opportunities for outdoor leisure and recreation facilities. Facilitate a safe and healthy walkable community. Ensure there are places where the community feels comfortable to gather, respect and embrace the history and traditions. And First Nation cultural trail. This was someone's idea. Wasn't part of a First Nations cultural trail through town with First Nations exhibits, artworks, etc. Promote community through mental health and wellness programs, which obviously getting outside is a big part of. Developing gathering place in Hobo Hollow, and a community infrastructure such as signage and planters. I think there's environmental ones too. Ensure the environmental setting of Lytton is enhanced. Ensure a high standard of attractiveness and cleanliness in the community, with particular attention to the entrances. So you can think about Flag Park. And similarly, when you come over the bridge, right now it's there is a strip there, which is the old school, Lytton Elementary School. So just that is your gateway. Stewards of environmental assets through protection and restoration of native species, habitat and biodiversity. We are doing local plantings. The intent is, and it's a shopping list, fire resilient, native, low, drought resistant, bear aware. There's so many layers that it's a challenge. Protect water quality in local water bodies. Protectively manage and make natural areas resilient to changing climate, which I think Jason talked a little bit about too, how that can be done, whether it's water retention or it's routes to fight fires through using trails. Respect the Inca are stewards of their traditional territory, and more volunteer opportunities for the community environmental stewardship projects. Next slide. Inventory and protected sites and viewscapes with cultural significance. Obviously, we wouldn't do that. We'd work with the neighboring communities, work collaboratively and in partnership with these communities to address opportunities related to transportation, environmental protection, affordable housing, tourism, and economic development. Again, recreation, we talked about that a little bit in the economic development, that recreation can be a good contributor. Ensure municipal facilities, functions, and programs are welcoming and accessible. So that's really important. And encourage the village to take advantage of the two rivers for local water uses. I come from Whistler, so I'm not so sure a joint plan like Whistler with lodges on the flats surrounding the Stein is exactly, but this was someone's comment, and I think it's important to share that. And First Nation can develop their lands, and the TNR and the village develop theirs. We can plan together, but work separately. So I think the message there is good. So unlike economic development, where we did go on for a long time because there's so much to it, this one, I think we want to hear from everybody a bit more about your ideas. And do you want to facilitate and I'll write?
Sure.
So we've got a series of questions, but we don't have to stick to the questions. But we want to pull things out of your brain and about parks and trails. I'll get my pen and Jason will. And then if people, we did hear we've purposely not put anyone on television this time, because nobody wanted to be, but they were having a hard time hearing. So we do have a microphone if you'd like to use it. And then you press the button so it goes green. Yeah.
I can start the conversation. So I've had a couple of recommendations from the community itself. And really, I think, you know, we have a tremendous opportunity right now, and while we're having a look at these parks and trails and stuff, to actually educate visitors and community members. So self-guided tours, information boards with some history, culture, you know, sort of where we come from, where we're going, you know, all of those things important. So we have a good opportunity to get some positive messaging out there. And I personally know, like, as a tourist in another location, if I learn something about that community, it means more than actually going to a community and buying something, you know, like you actually learning something, some history or whatnot of the community. And I'm leaving that place feeling like I almost belong, like I'm more informed of where those folks come from. So. Yes, sir.
I don't think I need to write. But I had highest river rafting at my place for 5 years. We've got 1,800 feet of river frontage. And we have a trail going down the river. And sand dunes down there. And I had hundreds of people go through our property. And I put a little sign, trail to the river. And one of the high owners came along and said, you know what, Bill? If you put up a sign, they can sue you. Oh. But it's, don't put up a sign, just have the trail to the river, but don't put up a sign. Is that true?
Good point. Yeah,
what you would tend to want to do, say you really did want, but then there's another community for a community member says, I have this property, I would like to allow the community to have access. We can do what's called a step right away, and we can register it on your property, and you are covered, so then the village then takes over the liability.
Does the village have liability for people walking around town?
Yeah, because they're on our roads. Yeah. Yeah, so, you know, the old trip on the sidewalk would be very similar. Yeah. Don't give anyone any. Can I ask you where your property was? Curious.
So it's on a 7 mile.
Oh, okay.
I just want to know, because I think sometimes I take the elementary kids or the high school kids, I always take them down to Public County. There's a trail that goes down from this down here that crosses the CN.
Yes,
Is that a public trail?
the one that's between Brian is like the trail between the rail.
Yeah.
Yes.
It goes down the
Yes.
CN road.
Yes.
And then cross the track and then you walk from there down to that's all public county down on that gravel bar.
So right now, the village does own, or does not, they have a lease on some of the lower land in
Right.
Opal Hollow, which is right, but railways, as you all probably know, or really don't like people near their trucks.
And
Oh, yeah, it's right here.
yeah, right here, this road, see. I always go look for a CN employee and just tell them to walk in, if I drive my truck down.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And I park, got all the stuff done, but I know I'm gonna be doing that once sometime. And I just wanna find out, is that a public trail? Because that's where, I know the old lines go down, and it's public land that whole.
You're about that, that's technically I don't know. That's where the old caribou wagon road
Right.
came down
Yes.
the river, then it's
Yeah.
ferried across or whatever, slacks,
Yeah.
technically it still belongs. They, public funds were expended on it, so, but then, I'm not sure. Argue with that.
Yeah, I
But
know.
it is, they can't keep you off,
They can't,
keep you off the crossing the track.
yeah, we can't do that, but I was the track, so the track,
That's the issue.
it's the issue.
So, and really, I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, and that's, it's a good point that they never abandoned the old bridge right away. But you're right, it's very strange, yeah, and when we were working on Chief Smith to get this idea, council really wanted this trail to connect to the bridge. And we actually own almost to the RCMP. Across the highway. So we're just getting that worked on now, and so that we will continue to, so that we didn't want highways to prevent us from doing that trail connection, so we wanted to go right up against the bridge, basically.
That's from back here onto where people used to go through the fence.
Yeah.
Yes, that goes through the fence.
Yeah.
No, we'll open it up. No.
That blue fence.
I
haven't seen it
down.
for a while, so. So is it scared now? See that, it should just go away after people look at it to go. I mean,
I would stop fixing the fence.
yeah, people do come and say,
We're working on it.
the fence is a hazard, because it's. Walking down, it's.
Another aspect of that's almost the most common place where people go to look at the rivers. And it's also one of the ugliest things, and I think village needs to write a strong letter to CN. Replace that ugly guardrail. It's really, I'm embarrassed whenever I see people walking.
It's really, yes, we should, but we should do a little bit of our own, so can't, you know, words, you know, we should, yes, they might look at us and go, look at it. We should have to figure out, so.
I have some.
Yeah. We just can't get it out.
You got it. Wait, okay, time up. Okay. One each one. Yes, people can't hear. You have a nice one.
Lower now.
I think I mentioned this before, but before the fire, I was trying to campus to have a small park. I don't think there'll be one by the hub, but with a playground for small children. Because at that time, I thought we had a lot of moms that were between 18 and 23 with small babies, and they really had no place to go. Sometimes we went to the elementary school ground, but that's gone now. So if we could have a place with a couple tables, playground equipment for small people, so that the moms could gather there, the families could gather their little kids, which is all different. They could have a basketball court or something.
Absolutely.
I only have one comment, if I may. My comment is it's wonderful to have all sorts of beautiful new parks and things like that, but I think people often forget that maintenance is a big part of it, and it really bothers me that so many people and so much money has been put into different things, but nobody will water a tree or cut the weeds, which isn't a lawn anymore. I'm speaking specifically at the play part, which is an eyesore in the summertime. All it needs is water and somebody to cut the weeds down, what should be a lawn, and a little bit of maintenance. But you cannot put in gardens and parks and whatnot and just assume that they're gonna look after themselves because they just do.
Absolutely, and thank you, Sheila, and as our community is well aware that Sheila and her husband put tremendous amounts of time into help keeping our community beautiful and volunteered. So thank you.
Oh, we're behind you.
I just have a comment to complement what Sheila is saying. I won't get into history, but I know maybe well before the fire, there was a union issue about the Flag Park and community person who wanted to maintain that. So moving forward, I think a strategy would be to work with our union members that are maintenance with the village and have that conversation about what's their time. I know that they're going to be restricted on the amount of minutes that they're going to have to do this stuff, right? And then we can start to work with the community members to say, you know, now this is what the village is trying to maintain or what their minutes are, and this is where the community has to fit in. If we just leave it up to volunteers, to water the plants, it ain't gonna happen, right, Sue?
Yes, but to respond to that, it has to be, how you maintain things have to be figured out. And because as far as I'm concerned, don't make goddamn park unless you can maintain it. Everything going, look at the beautiful landscaping that went in at, the coaching, school, when it went in. And I guess somebody goes around with a lawnmower every now and again. Nobody weeds it, and they have beautiful things there. There's a lot in the peaks. It's not just municipalities or whatever. Just don't do it if you can't. You have to. You can't say, well, we'll figure out the minutes or whatever. It has to be decided in the beginning that you have to maintain it, otherwise.
So is this something that, I just want to make sure I'm understanding what we should pursue, because I think you're right, you don't just put something in. Is it something that the village should take on when they do this?
Of course they should, if it's a village project, if it's a village park. I mean, there's always going to be volunteers that want to help, but if you have to get out there with a hose and in the heat of the summer and you just can't expect a volunteer to do that. They can help, but the burden shouldn't be put on them to
Show up.
Kathy MacArthur and I, we fundraised, we did all the landscaping at the Stedman Lodge. We put in borders, we put in hedges, and we maintained the thing. We hardly even got a thank you from them for the hundreds, thousands of hours that we put in there. They did the irrigation, but they had irrigation. But that was, I guess, we were a bit younger, had more energy, but you just can't expect that. I mean, that's not right.
I've got, I live around here. There's lots of things we can do with our parks to make them like more usable with less water. I mean, zero escaping. They have like varieties of mix that you can buy that's like drought resistant. The one I'm familiar with has 4 types of hard fescue. And it's got huge roots on it. It actually works like, I planted some before it snowed, and when the snow went away, I had a lawn underneath it all of a sudden, so. It's pretty hardy stuff, so just looking for little things like that, but. I killed so many plants the first year I was here just by stupidly bringing things up that weren't drought resistant. So, maybe the parks should be like changed a bit. Maybe not so much water put there. It's kind of like the way it's gotta go.
Well, the spring of the park here, that's what we're trying to do to put in a bunch of native plants, but. Apparently, I think what happened was they put them all in before the irrigation was in and the majority of them died. So, I mean, even native plants to get started in irrigation.
Wow.
And then, I get more lost in place type these.
There's no law against being stupid. It's just gonna happen time and time again, and we're gonna laugh about it, right? Okay, we killed those, let's try something different, but I think it's doable. Yeah, just setting up something that doesn't have to be babysat so hard,
Yeah, and I know with Pocket Park is a good example of working with, I think it was the same nursery did here, but again.
Yeah.
You need to have the irrigation, and the irrigation needs to be there for a while. And even Fire Smart, he said, if you keep watering them, then they won't be a fire hazard, no matter what. So if they're green and you flip them and they're not burning, so. Go ahead, Jason.
Sounds like, just really good. Good opportunity now to have a look at operational plans and maintenance plans, work plans going forward for the parks. So definitely acknowledge, all the comments and, I guess potentially, on the economic side, there's an opportunity for somebody in the community to pick up the ball and start a lawn maintenance company. Thanks, Will.
So we're still sort of on what's missing, and I think that the maintenance, everything, it's not something new, it's definitely heard, and it's good to raise that, yeah.
Was thinking more instead of a park, what I notice all the time since the fire, since I've been back here, the trail from Kamshin Chimami School all the way into town is filled with gravel. And all I can think about if this somebody wants to be jogging or riding a bike or whatever, they're going to have considerable gravel burn. So is that highways or is that village or?
The sweeping it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so that one and even going across the bridge, like everything's just full of gravel. I guess it's why it would be that even to remove the railings coming down the Mile Hill so people don't get run over when they're trying to walk. I think more people would bike and or walk. I think about all the hundreds of miles we walked when we were younger because everything's close enough, but it doesn't seem to be I guess maintained for that.
Did the kids get bused that are going to the country school?
Yeah.
Oh, they do, okay.
When there's a town,
Yeah.
there was like people would walk up and down that hill all the time.
Yeah.
With YRB. Yeah, it's part of the meeting with YRB, so you have those seasonal conversations with YRB about maintaining that hill in the winter as well, or plowing, so the children pop out in the main road.
I take a YRB as the maintenance service for
Yeah,
ours.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, bridge roads.
Oh, yeah, I was, sorry, I was thinking, and that's a really scary thing sometimes, but, how can we help our community to start to feel proud? So one of the things that always comes to mind is what can they do? I mean, everybody wants to keep up with the Joneses, right? Oh, my garden is better than yours, right? So, why not put it out there to the community about having little spots for sale? Not really for sale, but
For rent or for use? For use?
adopt. And, this little spot, Jackie's going to say, okay, I'm gonna adopt this little spot. I'm responsible for looking after this tiny little area, a couple flower pots or little green space or something like that. And, and you can have just little signs saying, sponsored by Jackie Rafael, right?
Were the planters in town?
Right?
Yeah.
Things like that. And people, they could use their creativity. I mean, I try to do a little thing in my yard with flowers, and I'm like, really, Jackie? But there's some people like Sheila who has an amazing imagination when it comes to doing that sort of stuff, right? And so, why not put it out there? Why not get the community excited about doing something like that? Another thing that I have been thinking about also is having opportunities for people to buy benches and happening throughout the town for people to sit and chat and in memory of or something like that. There's a lot of things that we can do to get the people kind of excited and, you know,
There must have been a park program for benches before. Because Brian provided me with some.
Bridge timbers somewhere.
Pardon me?
There were bridge timbers.
Oh.
yeah, and like Vicky said, it creates a sense of ownership, right? And another thing that I wanted to mention is the parking. When I managed the What's Gas, we attempted to have bus tours, or they asked if they can come. And we're like, oh, sure. But oh my God, it was horrible. Those bus tours were just horrible. We had to ask them to leave because, oh my God, they bought maybe $10 worth of stuff at the gas station, used all the toilet paper and made a mess. And it was, we had such a small septic system, it could not hold it. And that's all we did was came into the washroom. And the bus drivers were feeling so bad that they would actually, buy some stuff from us. But they really wanted to take a picture of the two rivers. And there's no parking in town for buses. That's much.
Or just like this close off.
They were allowed to park in the street. There's
On Highway 12 or on? Yeah.
in the village.
Yeah.
There was no place for them to park.
Yeah, before the fire. Before the fire, what was worse stopping over at the park here.
Yeah.
And then at that point, they were doing the same thing, they're going to visitor center, these washes.
Yeah.
Usually they're on such a tight schedule, they would run different places to buy the food maybe, but we're on such a tight schedule, they didn't really. Stop.
And so
Thank you. What, so we're hearing maintenance. I like this adopt in some other communities. So Justin, what did you? Your hand up?
I was just gonna add something. Sure. So a couple of things, Gold Country, which is the association that's for, I don't think Boston Harbor's in it, but I think Cache Creek and Cache Cross Francis Bridge, they do geocaching. And I know in the past they had a couple of launches here. One year they had it at Ribbon Fest. And what I realized was a lot of families, especially from like Chilliwack, the Lower Mainland or whatever, a lot of families came up because they really liked that experience, and they sold books and they had the geocaching. I mean, you can do it on your phone, but there were hard copy books. And so what it is, and the families really explained that they liked this activity because it's really inexpensive. They could take their kids to various parts of the province. They could learn the history. They could understand the geography. And so it was, educational and a physical experience for them. So I know that Gold Country is talking about doing another launch. It always falls into, there's a bit of a muddy area where jurisdictional property or location or whatever becomes an issue, but that's for them to sort out. I think if we support it as a good, healthy family activity, it brought a lot of people in that one year at the festival. And those are the kinds of people that go to the grocery store and they buy bread and cheese and chips or whatever, and they go and they make their lunch on the side of the river or whatever. Another time after the 21, I think after maybe in 22, after the river had washed out the West Side Road and met somebody at the ferry, and it was, and I said, she said, oh, I'm gonna go to the camping spot. She says, I just want somewhere quiet. I just want somewhere quiet to sit and listen to the birds. And I think that experience, many times we don't really appreciate it because we're surrounded by it all the time. I see community members going here and there and everywhere because so busy, but so many people that are in that busy atmosphere all the time, they just want to go and be quiet. And so I think we have that chance. And if it's a walking tour, some people used to go across the bridge and walk all the way around the ferry and come back to the town. It's a good hike.
Can I ask as a community? I think those are great, you did, okay, carry on.
One more thing.
Yeah.
I wanna say about gold panning reserve. I'm not really clear what it is. I know it's an area where people can pan without having a license. And it goes from the rock takeout to confluence of the Thompson. But I think, over the last short while, I've heard people voicing concerns because there's gold panners on the other side of the river on, Banff property. And I've heard people voice concerns, so I think if we promote the gold panning area, we need to have an educational piece with it that talks about what you have to have if you're gold panning, what gold panning reserves allow you to do, and where specifically it is, and to respect in private property.
Absolutely good valid points. And, you know, maybe we can get 2 pointers from the gold commissioner if we get all of them to see what the parameters and whatnot are. I agree, some science to educate folks would be hugely beneficial. And just, I don't know if it's true or not, but maybe something to mark down. I know in the past, we've heard about potentially a grant from CN Rail for community beautification or community green spaces or whatnot. Maybe something to inquire about to get to the wire a little more appealing and looking for their yard. Yeah.
Well, and I'm respecting what Sheila was saying, and all of you are saying about maintenance. Is the parks you have right now good? Like, are you happy with them? I did hear a playground for small children. Is there anything that's missing that, you know, and I'm not saying right now, I'm saying in 10 years or 5 years, is there something that? Yeah.
Heard comments and suggestions about a small water park as well, just to provide that a little bit of reprieve.
Nothing for children in the. Nothing.
A water park also doesn't have liability issues that a pool does, where you can still cool down and press a button and you'll still have it into your other nights. So I bet you there's people on this side of the table that would speak if they were handed the mic if we weren't talking.
So, yes, I'm very small. How about? Now I'm part of the group too, the older group. You see sometimes that there's like little fitness, Rotary often does that. They're like little fitness gyms outside, and is that something of interest?
Yeah. Nobody talks.
Noni, do you want to talk to that?
Because the treasure was, we almost did that. It was a liability issue, wasn't it?
No, the village at the time, the councillor at the time didn't want to do it.
I thought it was a liability reason though.
No, you just made that up. People use liability as an excuse a lot of the time. You have to learn to just say, yeah, maybe that's the case, but guess what? There's still a plan here that's worth pursuing. So yes, we did think the Two Rivers Community Service Society explored the whole fitness stations. We looked at other communities that did that. And after looking at, there's a couple of different models that I saw. So it seems like there's one model where you've been talking about a self-guided tour where you walk around Lytton and you stop here and there and do. That would be one way of doing it, and having a little station here, a station there. And I need to do something at that spot. And we were looking at something that like a mother with a couple of kids could do, like they could walk and there was something for the children to do and the mother, the family at the same time. The other one is when you create a park, like it's been done at 3 Mile, at the battlefield. So there's that wonderful outdoor exercise station that is there. And that's an example of how that can go. So that generally, there's one like that at Harrison Hot Springs as well. They put it on somebody's ceiling or roof. I thought, oh, that's a cool place for one. But so those are the pros and cons, and you have to determine for your community what's the best fit. And for us right now, I'm thinking, well, there's already one at 3 Mile that's kind of all set up. If you want to take a team and go and work out, then clearly there's your spot. So for the village itself, I think probably the little piece here and there and a nice spot to sit and be cooler. And water was my issue back then, was if you're going to have these little workout stations, you're going to need water because you're going to get hot doing your little thing at that station.
So we'd want to have more water available if we were gonna go in that direction.
Okay, great, they looked at that. Jackie?
And more shade.
Yeah, I got you go down there,
Yeah,
or shade generally, right?
I was thinking about that too, it's like planting trees make shade, right? But everything like that, to start anything, it has to have water. There has to be, the irrigation has to be considered before any planting of anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to just put this out there. We don't even know who's going to be living here yet. Right?
Yeah.
So, you know, if you look around the room here, then there's only one person that's under the age of 30. So,
Maybe
you know,
it's your
I wouldn't do that to her. But you know what I mean? Like we don't even know who's going to be living here. And so is this premature? I don't know.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe target some of the people in their, you know, 20s to, you know, kind of get like their ideas. Yeah.
Well, I think part of it is if there's nothing to attract that age group. Then they're disadvantaged, so you know, what is risk irrigating, right? Is that I wanna have something there that's attractive that they can see they can use on a daily basis.
Thanks, that age just catching up. I was scared I was going to lose my thoughts. Yeah, I thought, for these stations, I really like the idea of having a station. And I think what somebody mentioned earlier was about when you look at community and you look at mental health. And so there's a great opportunity there to have like little signs saying, you know, here's a little exercise or breathing something that you can do. So it takes care of all your quadrants, your physical, your spiritual, your mental, or whatever, right? You can add that part in there as well. So, and the young lady is my daughter Kendra, who just moved here from Vancouver. So she hasn't even been here a week. And I'm just like, oh, come to this meeting, right? So. No pressure. But then that's that part where you look at who's going to come here, and I think Lytton can be a destination spot for younger people because the expenses in the city are so high and they will never be able to afford to buy a house. And with the highways and everything, there's like the international airport in Kelowna and one in Vancouver, and you can get there really quick. So I think Lytton has a huge opportunity to grow in whatever way. It just depends on how you market it.
Can I ask Kendra what you would do for recreation and parks? What did you enjoy when you lived in the city? Maybe?
I didn't like the city too much, but it kind of ties into what Jason and Auntie were saying with the freeway. What I did really like Vancouver, there was a freeway and it runs through a big portion of the city. It has bike trail, a walking path. Along the side, I have like a little rent the garden type thing. It's your own little thing and you're responsible for it. You eat flowers, vegetables. People would bring like their old furniture, so there's benches, little hammocks and chairs. And I would just like go sit free, just people watch. That's what I liked. But
So like funky little spaces that you could kind of get lost in the city.
yeah. And it was like bookstores and little things like that. I went down to help my sister with Brand I goes, I wanted to just sit in here my thing. So I went down with every 2019. Then just back on Friday. But I spent summers here in Lytton because my family's all from here. And it was like the swimming pool was like the place to be. So even when someone mentioned the like water park, I'm like, a water park would bet. Like it doesn't have to be a pool, but like a little splash area, because then you can just hang out and it's like nice and cold. Then if there's like picnic areas, you can just go eat and play in the water. Just hang out and enjoy the sun while staying in the pool. So I think a water park would be cool, and I think, yeah, if we could have like little garden spaces along the walkway. But then also with the sign with like a self tour, I'm like, that would be really cool, because I grew up in Vernon, so it's like, I kind of know Lytton, but I don't, like, I think a self-guided tour, even for people I want to reconnect with the community that don't really know it. Cause like my parents will mention stuff and they think I know, because like they grew up here and I spent summers here. I'm like, what are you talking about? All of them. No.
I would say question I started, what is a mobile home? And is that, is using the term mobile like a negative connotation, but I learned that no, the homeless were quite proud of their. Okay, sorry.
Well, story time after me.
Again, that's an interesting name, it draws you, you wanna.
I'm gonna change the topic to trails, sort of, kind of. Before the fire, I went walking with a group of ladies, and we used to walk down through Hobo Hollow, across the bridge, around the west side, all the way to the ferry and back. And sometimes we take the trail that went below the road and along above the river, and came out at Eileen Zimmerman's there along the sand. And I know there was a whole group of us that did that once a week. And then the other walk we did once a week was across the bridge and then up to the cemetery up above, because we're up there on the Botany Road and back. Of course, that was a shorter walk, but the view up there is spectacular. I know that, and I also worked at the visitor center before the fire. And one of the things that, was always talked about was, like, why don't we advertise those walks? But unfortunately, it does. It goes across CN property, it goes across Elephant land, it goes across private properties. Like, I just wish there was a place we could go for a good long walk without those, worrying about those kind of things. Right now, I go up to the high school field and do laps of the field up at Cumsheen, but yeah, I just wish there was some trails to go walking on.
On the issue of trails, there's some huge potential here for a trail, for example, that does not infringe on anybody's private property, that is all crown land, that has spectacular views, and part of the trail already exists. That is, you go up Loring Way, all the property above Loring Way, up to the Lytton Creek area, and it goes all the way over to the Nicola River that goes up in Spence's Bridge. It's all crown land. It goes down. You can do a very nice walkway. In fact, the last week, I went up to Loring Way about 3 or 4 times, thinking specifically of marching out a trail that would be a nice loop trail, and there could be other tangent trails off that. Another excellent one is just across from Cumsheen, instead of driving into the Cumsheen access road off the highway, almost perfectly across from that is a trail. This trail happens to be the old Caribou Wagon Road, and it's in excellent shape. I asked the fire crews if they would take all the dead trees off of it, and they did. And that trail leads you right up to Ski Hiss Park. And there's an option for another one. You could do a huge loop. Some of the old cat trails that come down, you come right back down to the same spot. There's two that do not infringe on private property that basically already exist. So there's a lot of potential. And I think what all these parks that we have, and we mentioned that, I was actually quite flabbergasted. We have a lot to offer here. But the thing is, we have to prioritize that. There has to be a group or an organization or a committee of some kind that has to undertake and develop and, like I said, prioritize those. What do we need the most? What do the people locally need the most? What is going to attract people from the outside? And one last comment is mentioned about people coming to Lytton because it's out of the beaten path. Our daughter Megan, as you know, has a tiny home. One of her best customers there that used to come for about 4 days a week are people, couples from the city. They want to get out of the city and they want to just relax and not have to worry about all the hustle and bustle. Anyway, that's talking to my chat. You want to say something?
No, sure.
I'm gonna jump back to what you asked about a while ago about what we're missing that we used to have. And I don't know that there's anything we can do about it, but I think the LES playing field is really missed. I saw a truck up there today, so I drove around. I'm not sure what they were doing up there, but there was a basketball court there. There was a playground, and it was a big playing field, and a lot of kids could just go and kick a ball around. Soccer games, yeah. So I think it's kind of in limbo right now, but I don't know if whoever controls it or whatever, it could be greened so the grass doesn't completely die. It's an excellent place. I remember driving into town once and I came down through the reserve and it was like, what's going on in that field with all those creepy balls, you know, those ones where they put people inside and they were rolling across there. I don't know if it's Child and Family or one of the groups were having an event, but a lot of events were held up there, but because it was so green and expansive, it was used for a variety of things. And it's just sitting there, so I'm not sure how we've got to head and get some cooperation on just keeping it green and viable in the short run while whoever develops.
It probably will be, because I think addition to reserve or back to nation, so that is something that an OCP cannot absolutely dictate, but when a new development comes in, it's often good to tell whoever owns the land what you'd like, whether that's what they want to do, but at least start there so that they're not in the dark when they eventually come in. That's often a good thing.
Just a comment that after the fire, our BC Wildfire Service, of course, we're very attached to working the fire here, and they wanted to work towards Memorial Park. And I know at the time we were all going like overnight there. It was almost poor timing, but they were very connected to what happened at the fire with their members, how dedicated they were. So that offer, I'm sure, is there to follow up. And I think that the village probably might have some very small lots that they're going to find out they can't put a house on them. So perhaps some of these areas can be put out there in the mix and be allowed to have like the BC Wildfire Service to say, would you like to design that, like you're saying over here, like what you saw in another area? It would be a great idea. Yeah, and I think that there are some little spots that would be big enough for somebody to make a plan. So that's just my comment.
Good comment. We definitely are seeing that there's going to be lots too small for a house.
Yeah.
Someone has to deal with that, but
Those plants. Hey, yeah, but I'm not talking about this right now. Sheila did a great job with that. I'm wondering if there are legal things about accessibility and if they have been utilized or overlooked. And I'm talking about things like when we're talking about people who can come here, if a family has someone in a wheelchair, can they get into the picnic site? And I just did the drive-by on Pocket Park. I don't think that table has an overhang. But it's as simple as building the tables instead or having someone build them And just having a place that somebody can actually bring their knees underneath in it. And then it has to do with crush on the surfaces, so that that wheelchair can be supported by that and things like that. And then families can enjoy themselves that way. And it's really inclusive. And that, like, we started this in the 80s, and it's still in a pioneer stage. And that was how Radiant Hot Springs and the park systems in there and the accessibility guides to the region and things like that came about. It was with a society called Columbia Soil, Columbia Society of Nutrient Living. And we're still in the pioneer stage. And the leader of that was Glenna Snow, and she is in a wheelchair now. And at that point, I beat at the bottom of her walking stick that my partner had made. And she was using it as a third leg for balance, and she's now in a wheelchair, and it's polio. So she's an elder, but it could be a child as well. So, and the other aspect of that, my son is legally blind, and he is on the council in Kelowna right now, looking at the crosswalks and all those things. And of course, in Kelowna, it's a lot bigger, and there's traffic lights. And we don't have traffic lights, but I think it's worth looking at things like that, especially when we're going into park sites. And how would somebody cross the street? So just things like that, if we want to consider all those aspects at this point, it's a good time and timing to be looking at that.
That's excellent comment. Yes.
Just one final, I just took a quick drive up to Vernon a couple of weeks ago, and I see that the about the rail trail actually goes from Okanagan. So they have like rental stations for all the electric bikes all the way through there. So when you sit in when Bernie's talking about that trail behind, like, why don't we connect with this bridge and that, we have to figure wherever. What was that? The door this time. Oh,
It was the speaker.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, that's morning. So
Is it fair that it would really be nice if there were non-vehicular ways to connect the greater community? Yeah.
And acknowledging the presence of bikes and allowing for cycling, because I think it's that cycling, that's one of the things that if you build it, they will come. Like, if there's a place to ride your bike, you ride your bike. And if it's crazy going down to Swan Hill on your bike, you'll do it, but you'll hopefully have to get hit on the way down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same with the bridge, you can ride your bike on the bridge.
Yes.
I'd love to hear from Brian, since he's on the ground.
And Brian just wanted to talk. Believe me.
Hey, I really love the idea of I can buy a park bench in memory of my mother. I really love the idea of leasing out the parks a year at a time. But you have a limit to the amount of water you're gonna be allowed, okay? That is an issue here, like. And Xeriscape looks great. We walk around the bush all day long, right? It would probably, take a lot of the weight off the village workers. I think they don't have to deal with that stuff. And everyone is very opinionated about parks. So, yeah, I think he was putting like I said, there's 7 parks downtown right. And person under 30, you should run for council.
Just want to go back to the.
Yeah.
What we might do is I'm gonna put one of those plans out. And are you guys good if I leave a bunch of Sharpies and you can just say, this is my favorite park, or you can just share something? When we work with communities on parks, people really like to see them and to think about them and grab them. And same with trails, like connections. I tried to do some, but trails, I don't know where you'd like to walk. And thanks for you guys that talked about how you go. I know as soon as I do trails out of here, it's just a different place. There's views everywhere, right? As you all know. But, so we're at 6:30. I can't believe it. So quick, we did that. Jason? Raven?
How about Thomas? And
I know what Bernie was talking about, I just wanna say something about that trail that's gonna go up to above Loring Way.
Mhm.
And it goes along that way, along the bottom of the mountain. And if it does ever go up and that hill. I was told a long time ago, if you ever go up, a hike up there. Watch for meteorites, because that's where a lot of.
Oh, wow.
That part of the mountain. And I remember went up there and I believe it too.
Wow.
I say, they said the meteorites were going that way and hitting the mountain whenever they came in, but. I'm just saying that's
That's basically kind of folklore that.
Today, right?
It's true though, that's
That's
what's
neat.
happening on some of them.
I know that out at Shaw Springs and out there. When, oh, this is quite a while ago, way before we had them. There were, at one time, there were 300 people came from Vernon to Shaw Springs to look for agates.
Right.
And that was the reason they came into this area. And they stayed there for days, agate searching.
Is that a meteorite thing?
It's almost. It's close enough.
It's valuable.
It's split it open, it's very common.
Hill, Eli and I, we were in the hotel. About 10:30, 11 o'clock. We just gonna take our bus, it came around the corner. Headed up towards Kenny's, and it was sparkling blue. I thought, well, it's gotta be a car, it can't be anything else but a car, but. No, it's went all the way around and then around past Kenny's. Eli and I both saw it.
I was looking at James Springs Watson. Saw this like, side, and it was all in like a triangle shape, and we were trying to have your microphones on site.
Sorry, are we done?
A lot of tremendous, amazing suggestions and recommendations that we've compiled on flip charts of where several meetings are recorded, so. Can reference those and really this part, we'll get maps on the table and let's continue some of these conversations in more informal setting and let's share some stories. There's there's a lot of really interesting things that in history. So, Christiana, and
Yeah.
thank everybody for.
Thank you. Yeah.
Favorite part?
And the music's help yourself.